Thanks, Linda, and I'd like to also welcome everybody to the first Growing Concerns for 2014. As Linda mentioned, it's going to be a weekly event now throughout the whole growing season, and even though we might be a little bit on the early side for a lot of the crop issues right now, I think there's a lot of things we can talk about before we get onto the land and get some of the seeds in the ground. So for today, we have two guest speakers. Mike Wroblewski, who works for Mafford. He's our ag meteorologist. I thought it'd be great to get him on and maybe give us a little bit about what's going on with the weather, what the outlook is for the next week or so, and maybe when we might be getting out onto the land. And then as we're thinking about going onto the land, there's always lots of questions regarding seed treatment and some of the new plant health issues that are coming in with the seed treatments. And we have Todd Drummond from Bayer Crop Science with us as well today, and he's going to go over a few of the things that they've been seeing with some of their products. But to start off, there's always a few things that we could talk about regarding crops update and cropping issues. And I guess one of the things I just wanted to mention is that we've actually got a couple of confirmed cases of glyphosate-tolerant kochia in Manitoba, and this just went out, I think, either yesterday or day before yesterday to the press. So I guess it was a project that was being done jointly through Manitoba Ag and the Saskatoon Research Center, and it was funded through the Western Grains Research Foundation and BASF. And over the past year, we collected 283 different kochia populations were harvested and thrashed and planted over the winter. And from that, the resulting seedlings were sprayed with glyphosate and found to be, and two sites were found to be or show resistance. And right now, both those sites are located in the Red River Valley, so they're going to be monitored, and surrounding fields we've monitored for this coming year. I don't think this is something that we didn't expect to happen. We had resistant kochia showing up in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and to the south of us in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. So I think it was always just a matter of time before we found the resistant plants here, and in some cases might have been just that we weren't really looking for it, and now that we have been looking for it, we found it. So the resistance is here. I guess one of the good things about finding it early is it does give us a flag for producers and for industry people that are working with producers that we can start talking about maybe using some other products besides just glyphosate, and maybe reducing some of our glyphosate applications. Also be on the lookout to be managing in our fields and watching for different issues that maybe we wouldn't normally see with products not, say, killing everything out there, or not. We're getting some escapes and seeing some tolerance problems in some of the fields. So I think it's good to know that it's here. It's good to know that we found it early, and I think what we need to do now is we just need to manage our fields and try to do some chemical rotation to help control the problem. So this is something that we'll probably be talking about throughout the year. I think if you, as a producer, have or notice something in your field throughout the growing season, I would encourage you to contact one of the Mafford staff to come out and take a look at it, to collect samples, and then we can find out if it indeed is resistant. Also, if you're a dealer or you're seeing something in a field as you're doing your travels, to maybe let the producer know, or even do some investigating yourself. So I think this is something that will be happening throughout the year, and I think we'll have updates throughout Growing Concerns this year as to what's going on. Just a couple more things. We're looking at Again, probably an increase in the soybean acres planned for this coming year, and I just figured I'd put a couple issues that I've been hearing lately. There's some rumors of shortages of inoculants for not just soybeans but for all pulse crops. So if you're looking at growing peas, lentils, or soybeans, I would encourage you to make sure that you have you have booked or have the availability of getting inoculant for the crop. From everybody I've been talking to, most of it has been booked. They're still producing some, but you know, we never know if you'll be able to. You really need the inoculant to grow the crop, so definitely make sure you have that in place before you start making the decision to grow the crop. Also, a reminder to the producers that are using planters to plant soybeans or any other pulse crops that come with a seed treatment on it, especially with the neonicotinoids. They need to be you need to be using a fluency agent this year to help control the dust, and this all stems from the issue with the bees and other insects being killed because of the dust that's created from the seeding process. If you are seeding with a planter this year and aren't aware of the fluency agent, I would say to talk to your retailer where you're buying the seed. He would probably be able to guide you as to where you can get the product, or he may have the product himself. And we've been talking quite a bit about the weather lately, and on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see where I took a picture last year. Just what a coincidence! It was the April 16th last year was a Wednesday, and that's when we had a webinar, and that was a field that was on just around the Kenton Oak Lake area. And I took this picture, and that same field this year is on your right-hand side. So maybe not quite as much snow this year on the right-hand side, but the fields were still covered in snow. So even though it may seem late, I think it's probably just because we had such a long, cold winter that it's looking late. But really, we were in the same situation last year as we are right now. So I guess with that, that's one of the reasons I wanted to get Mike on today to talk about what's going on with the weather and what kind of changes we can see between now and the next week or so. So Linda, I guess if you want to turn it over to Mike, then we'll get us started with his presentation.
Thanks, Lionel. Good morning, everybody listening. Hopefully you can see my screen right now. Can you see it, Linda?
Yes, we can see your screen. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. As Lionel mentioned, there's lots of similarities this year in terms of the snow as there was last year. Last year we had a really good thaw in terms of good low nighttime temperatures, which slowed any risk of any real flooding. The same kind of situation is occurring again this year. Although we have a bit less snow right now, it's receding pretty quickly as you look outside. We're going to run through a bunch of products and take a look at some of the seasonal indicators, and we'll get a bit of a grip on what's going to happen for the next 2 weeks. So here I go. Now the big thing. Here's the state of the snow on the ground for today. A lot of similarities with last year. However, the actual snow cover actually extended well into the Dakotas and into Minnesota last year at this time. But the interesting thing last year is by the first week of May, it was all gone and farmers were on the field seeding. And as you remember, it was a pretty good season in terms of that. This year, as you can see by the product, the states are kind of devoid of snow this time this year, which is good. It's removed the risk of any real flooding. Taking a closer look at this snow state in southern Manitoba, and here's the zoomed in view. You'll see in the southwestern, the parkland region, you still got a pretty good snow cover, anywhere between 30 and a half a meter. It's a pretty good snow state out there. There's lots of melting out in central southern Manitoba. As you can see, it's only around 1 centimeter or none at all. It was all from the storms last week. One thing you should note is this dashed line here. This is historically where the snow line is on this date in the climate book. So we're a bit farther behind normal, but I have a really good feeling that this time next week it'll be a bit of a different story here on the ground in southern Manitoba. So that's the state of the snow right now in southern Manitoba. You'll see in the western Saskatchewan, it's pretty well, all the snow's gone. They've got a decent pack up in the northeast area, which flows into the northwest of our province, so maybe a bit of a heads up this spring for the high water up in the Paw. I know they're having issues right now, so that could get worse for sure depending on how much precip we get in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Now the big driver, we've been ENSO neutral. ENSO stands for the Equatorial El Nino Southern Oscillation. It's basically the Pacific Ocean in the southwest of the globe of us. We've been neutral for the last about 1.5 years, and what that's caused is a bit of a chaos in terms of the long-range forecast for North America. As you can see, we didn't really have a very good grip coming into the winter of what it was going to be. All the indications were nothing but normal, and that's basically a result of when we get neutral conditions down in those equatorial waters. The forecasting, global forecasting, kind of takes a bit of a downturn in terms of its accuracy. As we saw, they were forecasting nothing but normal this winter, and it's not hard to see that we're well below normal in terms of temperatures. Now, usually in a winter we get in North America, we'll get an undulating, you heard the term cold vortex this year, which I think is just a normal Manitoba winter. However, usually it undulates, and we get 2 weeks of cold, 2 weeks of generally warming, then another 2 weeks cold. This year, that cold area seemed to just hang over North America basically the whole winter, and it resulted in other parts of the world not getting a really bad winter as expected. So this product here is a global indicator of the ENSO forecast coming up for this season. Now, you'll see that the red line is probability of El Nino, blue is La Nina, and green is neutral. You could see ever since in the spring of last year, the neutrality is starting to dip throughout the season last year, and there's been some speed coming up in terms of forecasting for possibility of El Nino setting in for this summer. Now, for us in southern Manitoba and Canada, generally El Nino really affects our winter, and the biggest indicator is the temperature seems to be a bit warm during an El Nino event, which is really good for us after 2 years of cold temperatures. Generally, the precipitation is a bit lower than normal, although we might get a bit of excess fall moisture through an El Nino event. But right now, things are just trending towards the El Nino possibly for the summer. So we'll keep an eye out for that. If anything, we can expect not as cold winter as we had this year. So all indicators are that we're headed to an El Nino for the summer, but a weak one. This is the forecast. Now, you're looking at a trace here of all the forecasted agencies and the ensemble forecast. So basically, all those lines are different forecasts for the winter, and they all trend towards El Nino. Now, El Nino is always when that warm equatorial surface water goes above normal. So in this case, usually about 0.5 degree above normal, the surface temperature of the water, and you get an El Nino event. So everything is indicating that we're going to start to see an El Nino in the summer, which is good. No real effects for us. Maybe for the Americans, they'll be watching a bit closer because there's a real decrease in the amount of precip forecasted for the Pacific Northwest, and a lot more precip for around the Florida area in southeastern U.S., and warmer than normal down south. So everybody will be keeping an eye on their dry conditions down in the southwest this year, especially into the winter. This is a quick loop of the effects of El Nino on mean monthly temperature. Now, I know it's a really fast loop, but the consensus is the yellow area in the winter is warmer than normal, so that's a really good thing. Now, monthly precip. I know it's a fast loop, but generally it's a decrease in the amount of precip for our neck of the woods, and you can see the red lighting up in that Pacific Northwest, as I mentioned, about the decrease in the amount of precip. The Midwest, the summer looks like nice and dry when an El Nino event comes in the high plains and the mid-southwest. So just we'll keep an eye on that throughout the season and see how that comes through, whether or not it really sticks with an El Nino event. Now we'll get into the climate forecast for the season. This is Environment Canada's outlook for April, May, and June. And unfortunately, we're about 3 or 4 days out from a new issue from Forecast. So we'll rest on these. We only take these with a grain of salt, but it's good to take a look at. Now for Manitoba, there's no evidence of below or above normal. Everything looks to be normal in terms of temperature for April, May, and June, but obviously March was about 3 or 4 degrees below normal, and by this forecast, I expect that they figure that we're going to come around normal in the latter half of April. We're almost there now. So now here's the Americans. Once again, I put more trust in the American long range just because I do, because they usually pan out a lot better. Here's the 3-month forecast for temperatures the Americans are putting out, and this includes April, May, and June. And as you can see in the whole northern plains and southern Canada, below normal. It differs a bit from the Canadian products, but below normal it is. Now for the precipitation outlook for April, May, and June, and this was produced on the 31st of March. No real indicators there of any excess precip. One thing to note, that right around that PA region and where we have some water issues right now, they're saying below normal for precip for the next 3 months. So that's something we can take away. That's a good thing for those people up north there for this spring. Hopefully nothing happens bad. Here's the 3-month outlook the Americans are putting out, April, May, and June, and there's no indications except on the western coast, which is below normal for that period. Now we'll go out even farther. The Americans take us out way farther, and here's July, August, and September for this year. And our region looks like normal conditions, lots of dry seeping into the western Canada. It looks on the southern border area, so we'll keep an eye out on that. But it doesn't look to swing very close to southern Manitoba, that above normal temperatures, sorry. Now here's the precip outlook the Americans put out for July, August, and September, and there's nothing out there to say that there's going to be anything but normal, except that the Gulf Coast area looks like below normal. So we'll keep an eye on that too. We really rely on a lot of that moisture from the Gulf of Mexico region, and hopefully the indication of the Midwest being normal means that we're going to get normal amount of precip up in our woods from that phenomena. Now some of the drought indicators down south, things in the far American Southwest have been dry. This is year 5. There's a bit of alleviation over the last 18 months, but as you see by the graphic, there's just a little tongue in Minnesota that's pretty dry. So in terms of year-to-year situation, the Dakotas seem to be receding in terms of their drought risk in the southern areas, so that usually pans well for us. Now the outlook out to the end of June, much the same thing with no real risk areas to the south of us and nothing kind of permeating into southern Manitoba off this graphic. So those poor Southwest people. Now I'll focus a bit on the closer term precip models. This product here is a 240-hour precipitation accumulation map from the GEM models, the global models. And this takes us out to basically the end of the month, to the 26th of April. And if you take a look in southern Manitoba, there's a pretty good precip field. A bit of this is going to come in the form of rain on Saturday, and then it looks like next Thursday a nice dump of rain too in the southeast. So if you correspond those with the colors, the purple is around the 3-inch mark, and the red is about the 2-inch mark. So it looks like it's pretty well blanketing all of Ag Manitoba and a bit up to the northeastern Interlakes. So a bit of precip coming. This, in most cases, will be in the form of rain, so that's a really good indicator, and it's going to clean up the fields lots. So 2 to 3 inches over the next 10 days. Now here's the American product. It differs slightly. The dark to light blue is about the 3/4 of an inch mark, and the purple is above the 1.5 inch mark. So you can see southern Manitoba sitting right around they forecast around the inch mark out to the 26th. So they are forecasting less precip, but if you notice, there's higher fields to the west of us and to the southeast of us. So we seem to be in a little hole in terms of the Americans, but not the Canadians. Now, this goes out even formulated American precip maps, and this takes us out to the 2nd of May, and they're being consistent with that little hole in terms of less amount of precip in southern Manitoba. However, those big 3 and 4 inch markers are all around us except in the southwest. So you'll see that there's about 1 3/4 inches just in the Carmen eastward area, or maybe it's more like Morden eastward. So we're definitely getting some April, early May showers for the next 2 weeks. So things are warming up. That's about all I have, unless there's any questions. I just wanted to show everybody some soil moistures right now, or soil temperatures. Hopefully to include from December 1st. And the central region, please ignore that lower graph. That's from Starbuck. It's actually at the dump, and it's way colder than normal, whether that's from metal in the ground or whatnot. But generally, throughout the winter, we hung around the -5 and dropped to the -10, a couple little -15s temporarily in terms of the soil moisture or soil temperature. These are at 5 centimeters. Eastern areas, much the same thing. Didn't really hit too many -10s. The Interlake, I think we have one station, Toulon, that reached -10 for about a week. And in the northwest, same much thing. It didn't really even reach -10. And in the southwest, you'll see the trace. Most of it picks up from February 1st. But you can see the trend there in terms of how that soil temperature went through those really cold temperatures. There's a few licks at -10, but other than that, we fared well. We had a really good snowpack. It was a very crusty top. It kind of acted a lot like a styrofoam cooler out there, and it kept those subsurface temperatures while they prevented them from really hitting those low marks. So if you take a look at presently, most stations are either in phase change right now, or they are above zero. Now those places are above zero probably due to no snow cover or real minimal, but you can see that everything's starting to warm up in most places. There's a few places that are still locked in phase change, but other than that, most places are out of it and the soils are starting to warm up already. Just taking a look at some of the winter wheat. Everybody was worried about winter wheat this year. And the first graphic you'll see here, the 2 traces are from Morris. We have soil temperatures in the winter wheat field right at 1 inch. The first block is for the last couple weeks, and you can see it's basically locked in phase change where it's trying to go above zero, and you can see a couple raises above zero where it actually did, and then it went back into phase change hanging around zero. The second trace is all the way back to December, and you can see roughly around the -10 in the really cold times, nothing too severe. And right now it's kind of in and out of phase change right now. Beausejour has been below zero, but it had hung all winter basically right around that -3 points, so good for winter wheat. Toulon is locked in phase change since the 2nd week of April, so things are starting to warm up there also. That's about all I have, unless you have any questions. Thanks for listening, and hopefully that rain comes this weekend and clears everything out.
I have a question here, Mike. So can we assume that our neutral position probably will last till September, October, November? And does this mean unsettled and hard to predict?
Are you talking about ENSO?
I have no idea.
Southern Oscillation?
Probably. I'm not sure. This question came in.
We're neutral right now. All indicators are neutral. In other words, the temperature on the surface of the Eastern Pacific right now is right around normal. So there is an increase in that surface temperature, and all indicators are leading towards it's going to start to be El Nino around July-ish. So, but it's very weak El Nino, they're thinking so far. So you're not really going to see any indicators for us in southern Manitoba for the summer periods, for sure. And the biggest effect that El Nino has on us is the winter months for sure, with those warmer temperatures. Other than that, you know, our neck of the woods isn't really affected too much except by the temperatures from this phenomenon. So right now we're neutral, and how does that affect the forecast? Just like I said, it kind of, these global models really need a strong indicator sometimes on the globe somewhere to really enact the whole forecast change. Other than that, right now when it's neutral, it just bobs around the normal spot because there's no real indicators to tell it otherwise. That's not always the case. Usually there's other global influences, but the ENSO is the major player in the whole tilt towards either an El Nino or La Nina. One thing I can say is we were La Nina for about 2 years, and usually the trend is sinusoidal, where if we go to La Nina, usually we either neutral off or we jump right into an El Nino year. So these things are normal to flip-flop every couple of years, so it's kind of right along the trend as it should be. I think the big question is well, where was El Nino and La Nina previous to these 2 cold years? Well, they are around. If you remember 2010 and all the fall precipitation, that was a La Nina year. La Nina seems to affect us a lot more than El Nino here in southern Manitoba. So hopefully that answers your question. Other than to say that neutrality in terms of the south kind of doesn't give us a good enough forecast.
Okay, great, Mike. Lionel, did you have any other questions?
No, I think that's it for now. Thanks, Mike. That was a great update. And Mike, are you going to be supplying us again this year with all the information from your weather stations and stuff?
Yeah, of course, and they're all online right now. Lots of things. We just got 30 more snow gauges, so we're hoping by the end of this year that our whole network of 50 stations are fully kitted out for year-round. So things are looking up in our program. We're waiting for a bit of funding to push things off so we can show some more stuff on the public side.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
So I guess now what we'll do is we'll probably turn it over to Todd, Linda, and let Todd get into the talk we were going to have regarding seed treatment and the plant health. And what I want to do is just let kind of Todd take it away, and what we'll do is we'll have questions at the end.
So go ahead, Todd. We can see your screen now. So if you want to start.
Very good. I assume everybody can see. Sure. All right. Well, thanks, Lionel, and I guess I'll be corrected with the. I still call everybody Maffrey, but it's Matt Reed now. So, anyways, thanks for the opportunity to talk about, I guess, our new product in seed treatment, as well as what we're seeing with some plant health benefits as well. This is something that we've talked about for the last couple of years, I guess, looking at some what we call plant health benefits back in our Raxel, I guess, WW days, but really with the addition of stress shield. So first of all, I'm going to assume I just want to make sure I can advance here. Okay, here we go. So what I wanted to do is really, I guess, set the stage for not only just talking about a product, but really identify and make sure everybody is aware of the role of a seed treatment and what it's doing for growers and for getting your cereal crops off to a good start. So we want to remember that it does reduce the effect of disease during seed establishment and germination. We always talk about seed treatments make good seed better, just allowing them to reach their full potential. We want the plant to focus on energy growth rather than defending the disease against pathogens. So anytime that a pathogen, whether it be saprophytic or directly, primarily the disease source, we want to make sure that we can mitigate what's happening within that seed and allowing that to reach the full potential in growth. So the number of effects that happen is increased stand establishment, so that we're reaching, you know, a higher emergence rate. So not so much just germination, because as everybody knows, we can have a seed germinate, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to emerge through the soil surface. We're going to see better root health and plant vigor, which is a direct relationship between seed treatments and seed. Develop more green leaf material, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well with the new addition in our Raxel Pro product. Inoculant management, of course, you know, looking at systemic and contact activity and reducing the amount of inoculant that goes back into the soil, and then a direct control of smuts and bunts. So we have two disease sources. Obviously, we can have seed-borne diseases that are directly related to the seed, but then soil-borne diseases as well, which is what everybody's dealing with as well. So the old rule of thumb that we run into when we talk about seed treatments is most growers, or I guess the old adage is, well, I'm going to start treating when it's early. You know, the soil is cool, the soil is wet. For that matter, depending on the way the fall had left and depending on some of the practices that are done in the fields, it can be from wet to dry. But most of the time, we're seeing growers actually just going in and treating seed under those cold conditions. So not a bad idea. As you can see, Rhizoctonia and Fusarium become some of the main diseases that we're dealing with at that point in time. When the soil is a little wetter, Pythium becomes an issue, and Pythium was a big issue in 2009 in some wet soils that remained wet through the planting season and into the regular growing season. But I do want to recall or make sure that everybody is aware that just because the soil temperature increases, it doesn't mean diseases go away. In fact, primarily C. sativus and Fusarium become very predominant within the disease spectrum, basically taking over for the most part from Rhizoctonia in those dry soils. So we want to make sure that we are treating all the way through our planting season, and I will mention some of the strengths and benefits that we do have with our new products as well. The other thing that we want to make sure that everybody is aware of as well, not only looking at when to treat, but is proper application. And you know, the old adage was that as long as it got on there, it was good. Well, you know what? We want to make sure that we get really even coverage. The seed is not a perfect sphere, so there's a lot of cracks and crevices that we want to make sure that we can get product on, and basically going after some of those seed-borne diseases that are lying within. So the steps for applying a seed treatment, you know, we want to make sure that we set our seed flow rate, whether that be out of the back of a tandem or a grain trailer or out of a bin for that matter, but we will also want to match the treatment rate to the flow rate of the grain. And that's as easy as you know, timing it through an auger, having your auger running at the same speed, and then having an apparatus, whether you're weighing it through maybe a grain cart with a load cell, or running it into a gravity wagon or a tandem for that matter, let's say, and just running it over a scale. Dividing by the number of minutes gives you bushels per minute, and a lot of the treaters that are out there now will give you calibration charts that'll give you the idea of what your flow rate needs to be to match your seed flow rate. And then ensure even coverage. So this is moving away from running with a dripper type treater, moving into a calibrated spray pattern, which may be you know, with the use of a cone nozzle, maybe a flat fan nozzle with a shrouded hood, etc. But we want to make sure that there is even coverage. So here's just a couple shots that we've had in our slide deck for the last number of years, looking at how we can get good coverage. Now, with using a seed treater, what we really want to focus on is it's not so much the seed treater itself that's providing the optimum coverage. It's actually secondary mixing. Now, what secondary mixing is the activity that goes through the flighting of the auger that's loading either into an air tank, which more and more guys are pre-treating. That way that job is done. but it's really going into maybe back into a bin or into that truck where it's sitting and waiting to be loaded into the air drill. So as you can see, very blotchy looking type seed with no secondary mixing. With secondary mixing, that's where you're getting seeds rubbing together and actively going up the flooding the auger and getting very good coverage. So that's probably one of the most benefits of applying a seed treatment properly. I'll just give a quick example of that. This was some work that was done by Dan Barty, who used to work for Bayer Crop Science, now works for AGI. He did a trial at Bursay, Saskatchewan, looking at the effects of a seed treatment, but then also they basically looking at the effects of using a calibrated spray treater and then versus using a dripper as well. This is just some of the equipment that he used. It's a regular transfer auger with a G3 attached, and as you can see, that the auger that it's loading into, that's where he's getting his secondary mixing. So what I want everybody to take from this, looking at the seed treatment method through 2006 through 2008, the first 2 years were calibrated spray, which was the G3. Then I want you to look down product use. Basically, Raxel T is an old product versus Raxel MD, which we've left again, which we'll get into what we're talking through. And then at the end of the day, we want to make sure that that everybody is looking at that source and using certified seed, in this case, in 2008 common seed. Looking also at different crop rotations, wheat on pulse, wheat on wheat, etc., and then wheat on canola. So what I want to really focus on here is that in 2006 and 2007, the trial results being replicated was showing a 1.5 bushel to 2.5 bushel increase. As soon as it moved back to using a dripper, we lost between 1 and 2 bushels. So really focusing on that calibrated spray pattern and getting that active coverage on that seed versus a dripper is really advantageous between 1 and 2 bushels an acre. And soon that doesn't take long to pay for a treater. So we really want to make sure that that we are active in promoting good treating practices. So with Raxel Pro Shield and what we've kind of went through already, I've talked about where we'll get into is talking about products, looking at the disease spectrum itself. What we're seeing is both active contact and systemic activity. Talking about treatment, we've already done that, and then I'll get into plant health as well with the aspect of stress shield. So what is Raxel Pro? Basically, it's a new level of seed treatment protection for the seed. It's using our old Raxel MD technology with the addition of prothioconazole. This active ingredient is something that that we've looked at in numerous different applications, being in Proline and in Procero as well. Raxel MD has contact activity. Raxel MD is systemic activity, which is getting protection on the roots and shoots, and the contact activity comes from prothioconazole, really focusing on the Fusarium species, namely Fusarium graminearum and C. sativus, which is the root rots, and of course on smuts. And keeping in mind when we look back to when to treat and looking at cool and warm season soils, is I want to make sure that everybody is aware that the disease we're going after, what we're getting with the prothioconazole, is actually those two diseases, Fusarium and C. sativus. We're looking at disease mitigation with the Raxel Pro, which is increases, and we've seen increases germ and in vigor. And we're not moving away from microdispersion formulation, which is the best formulation for seed treating, which is what we've had with Raxel MD, and we won't sacrifice it moving through with Raxel Pro either. So we've got 2 active ingredients. Actually, there's 3 active ingredients in our seed treatment. It's tebuconazole, prothioconazole, and metalaxyl. The metalaxyl is namely there for Pythium control. The tebuconazole, what we're seeing is we see quick penetration into the plant and quick uptake and quick knockdown, whereas the prothioconazole is a little more robust, so it's a little slower moving within the plant or within the roots and shoots, but it's longer lasting and more persisting to lead to all-around long-lasting protection. We looked at 25 different seed lots within Western Canada last year, establishing a rating on germination, percent Fusarium graminearum infection on the seed, and C. sativus. And as you can see, we can increase the germ quite nicely, moving it up, basically moving it from a certified number 2 to certified number 1, lowering the Fusarium graminearum actively on the seed. That namely is the contact activity from prothioconazole, and then moving C. sativus into almost undetectable levels as well. What's Raxil Pro Shield? We've just talked about Raxil Pro, which is the addition of Raxil MD with prothioconazole. This actually takes our Stress Shield technology or active ingredient, metacloprid, and moving it in with these products. So under stress, a plant will try to protect itself by repairing any of the stress that that is causing, and this takes energy from the plant. Now, this revolutionary stress shield provides an additional energy source for the plant to draw on under times of stress. Namely, what we're seeing is drought stress, as well as any other stresses that could be provided to the plant from the environment, which are namely abiotic stresses, which results in larger roots, more vigor, and larger plants as well, with, in the end, the ultimate goal, providing more yield. So we're getting both a fungicide and insecticide seed treatment for a total package offering disease and insect protection. So once again, Raxil Pro Shield, we are using the power of Raxil plus the addition of prothioconazole. Once again, I want to remind people that we're having both systemic and contact activity, and then not sacrificing anything that we've had in our technology with Raxil MD. We're still going through the MD formulation or microdispersion formulation, and the power of Stress Shield with plant health and wireworm management. And now I'll get into a little bit of the plant health as well. So here's the active ingredients, as I mentioned before. Looking at different treatment rates as well. Raxil Pro Shield will eventually go on at 375 mils per 100 kilograms, and Raxil Pro on at 325. So plant health benefits, what do they come from? So stresses within the plant come in two different forms, both biotic and abiotic. I always look at the biotic stresses, looking at the things that we can control, diseases, insects, pests, weeds, that sort of deal. But it's the abiotic stresses that are thrown at us that really removes the amount of potential yield that is in our plants. And with the added benefit of Stress Shield, we can improve plant establishment, improve the biomass of the plant, improve plant health. Wireworm protection comes from the active ingredient imidacloprid, which results in end yield. We're also seeing a synergistic effect looking at prothioconazole as well as tebuconazole, and this is something that brings forward in our plant health benefits as well. So what happens under stress? We have imidacloprid or Stress Shield. It can cleave 6-CNA. 6-CNA is a degradation product, and it helps in leading the formation of proteins, which the proteins are there for the plant under times of stress to use as an energy source. Now what the 6-CNA does, it builds up the level of protein production or manufactures so that it's not using so much protein in fighting in cell repair, but it's actually offering a benefit in yield as well, so that's focused on the yield instead of disease mitigation. Now, interesting to this is that imidacloprid is a little bit different than some of the other neonicotinoids, thiamethoxam and clothianidin, and clothianidin is actually what we use in our canola brand. Cannot metabolize or cannot be metabolized to 6-CNA to help with this protein. So that is something that's beneficial to the Stress Shield product. So with that, we're seeing more photosynthesis pigments. So in other words, more chlorophyll has been or what we're seeing as well. More intensive tillering, which giving you a higher plant density, which a more intensive plant or a larger plant gives you more chlorophyll production for developing sugars within the roots. and then as well longer and more branched roots, which allows you to uptake more of water, nutrients, etc. So looking at the interaction between tebuconazole, which is TBZ in the slide, and prothioconazole, which is PTZ, we're actually showing an increase in plant vigor. Looking at this, what we can see is wider shoots interacting with prothioconazole and tebuconazole, looking at other standards. In the bottom there, we also have prothioconazole on its own and tebuconazole on its own, but with the interaction of the two, we're actually seeing an increase in vigor or plant shoot width. This talks about frost tolerance. It's really the shortening of the mesocotyl. What happens is it triggers the plant to actually stall or delay growth, and what that does, that shortens the mesocotyl or the subcrown internode, pulls it away from the sensitive layers of the soil. Response to that is it triggers more tillering, holds back a little bit of growth, and provides increased stress mitigation, and therefore stimulates growth once it does start. So they do talk about some frost tolerance as well. It doesn't mean that we can tolerate it all the time, but it does mean that at that early stage, this is a great benefit, as well helping in winter wheat production as well. Looking at total root length, increase in mass of the root length versus the regular market standards, which better water and nutrient uptake. And then as well, the overall root formation, this is over 4 different standards, and increase in overall increased root biomass. So looking at that, this is some trial results looking at stress shield. Stress shield, as well as what I mentioned, looks at both wireworm protection and plant health benefits. These 2 trials here in 2012 were in the absence of wireworms, so no wireworms present. Looking at our regular market standard, it currently was using Wraxel, moving to Wraxel WW, which has the stress shield in it, which the same stress shield is in our Wraxel Pro to perform Wraxel Pro Shield. And these trials in 2012, this was basically under a drier condition, as everybody can recall, and this is what we're seeing. So a dramatic increase in plant health benefits and resulting in increase in yield as well. So in summary, we're getting seed treatment protection from Wraxel Pro, and we've already been through this, or I've mentioned this, is improved crop vigor, an excellent crop stand, very robust crop, longer roots, and improved drought tolerance, which I've showed from the slides in 2012, and which really at the end of the day results in an excellent yield or a very healthy crop. So what I want everybody to do is just take down this website. It's www.bayercropscience.ca under Grow Your Knowledge. There's 4 little links that come with this. Talking about seed health, this is from Holly Gallick at BioVision. We have Donna Poisson from our Bayer Crop Science Camp in our DNL division, looking at Wraxel Pro and plant health, talking about seed treatment application by Trevor Glasson as well. Graham Hasty and Monica Kloss looking at Wraxel Pro Shield as well. So this is a more in-depth of what I took a snapshot of all these people's information, but this is something that you can go through at your leisure, and feel free to go through and engage your interest, I guess. So, and with that, that's all I had for today.
Okay, I think there's a question here, Todd, is how many days of control do you get once you treat the seed?
So thanks for the question. How many days of control? This is a well-rounded question that we get every year. A lot of it depends on how long the seed sits within the soil. Under normal growing conditions, it's up and out in approximately 7 days. And the other thing that you have to consider as well is the inoculum levels within the soil. So we generally talk around the 2 weeks of protection. And then what happens is that as the seed imbibes the water, so it swells, and once it swells within the seed, and that first act of growth goes through, so producing the shoots and therefore then moving into the roots, what you're getting is you're taking up the active ingredient as well. That's the Wraxel portion of the product. So it's moving systemically up through the roots and the shoots. As the product goes into the plant and the plant gets bigger, you're getting a dilution effect as well. And with the dilution effect, that's where you're moving back in the less days of protection. So early on, we get a good 2 weeks of protection, but as the plant grows, therefore there's not as enough active ingredient to take it through, and then it gradually fizzles out. So we like to say approximately 2 weeks, but it really depends on how long it's sitting there in the cool soils and the amount of inoculum load within the soil as well.
Okay, thanks, Todd. How long can products stay on seed if seeding is delayed without damage or loss of efficacy?
So there's no shelf life on seed treatments. The new seed treatments that we're using, and I'll speak for all companies, is they're very, very seed safe. We generally talk about 18 months, and we actually saw it from 2010. In the southwest corner, I had a producer that had some barley treated with some product. He kept it over. He could not seed in 2011, and he turned around and sowed it in 2012. And there was no, he took a germ sample as well, again in 12, and there was no negative effect. So there is no shelf life on the seed. Obviously, nobody wants to carry a product like that over, but it is fine, and it's not detrimental to germination.
Okay, that is all the questions that I have right now. Lionel, do you have any?
Todd, I got one here. For the stress shield, does that come with the wireworm or the insecticide part of the product, or could you, is that the way where you get the, I guess, the stress shield part?
So yeah, so I believe, am I on? Yeah, so I'll just clarify that. So imidacloprid is the active ingredient, and imidacloprid is used in the potato industry with the product like Admire. In cereals and in our soybean seed treatment as well, stress shield is imidacloprid. It's doing two things, getting wireworm protection, and we're seeing those additional benefits through plant health that's coming with that product as well. So does that answer your question, Lyle?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if it was, if you didn't want the wireworm control, then you probably would be going to a different product then, right?
Yes, exactly. So we have two products. So Wraxel Pro is Wraxel, or what the old Wraxel ND is, with the addition of prothioconazole. So that's fungicide only. If you want wireworm protection and the plant health benefits that Stress Shield offers, that's where you would use or buy a product like Wraxel Pro Shield. Those are two separate products.
Okay, great, Todd. That was a great presentation, and kind of answered a few questions regarding seed treatments, and especially the uses and some of the diseases that they're helping out with. So that worked out well. Thanks for doing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what we'll do now is I have a few slides left to finish off the day with, and we'll go to those. And basically, just wanted to give some information regarding if you have questions regarding webinars and or questions or ideas that maybe are topics we can talk about. If you wanted to get a hold of myself or Linda, these are our numbers and our information. Regarding the Growing Concern webinars, they are eligible for CCA credits. So if you are a member of CCA, you can give Linda a call, and she will help you out with getting your credits that way. We also have applied for CEU credits, and again, we're just waiting for the final approval there. Sounds like we will be able to do it. So again, if you are a CEU member and need credits there, we'll be able to work with you on that as well. For the Southwest and South Parkland, if you're needing an FPA or Farm Production Advisor in crops, it's Elmer Kaskiw in Minnedosa and Amir Farouk in Hamiota. We have an environmental FPA in Verdon, that's Andrea Bristlett, and she is also knowledgeable in crops and will be willing to work with you in crops as well. So if you have any crop questions, don't be scared to call her as well. And then I thought I'd put this slide up, and this is the Manitoba Crops team, and these are the FBAs dealing with crops in Manitoba. And so if you have questions, you know, don't be scared to give any of these people a call, and they'll be able to either point you in the right direction or get you in contact with somebody closer to your area or get the answer to you right away. So with that, I think that's everything we had today for the growing concerns, and I'd like to thank the people for attending. And once again, the webinars are being the videotape are taped, so you can view them later. And if you have people that are wanting to get on, just let us know and we will send them an invitation. And I think that'll end it today.
Sorry, Lionel, just a comment that the CEU credits are for CCSC designation. That's through the University of Saskatchewan. So
great. Thanks, Linda.